Welcome, everybody, to the College Football Preview Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Tonight, we are looking at the National Championship game, which will be played Monday night between the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, the 7th seed, and the 8th seeded Ohio State Buckeyes. Right now, this line started out at 9.5. It is down to 8 to 8.5 points at most sports books. 65% of all money so far has been bet on Notre Dame to either cover or win outright. Now, I know there's a lot of Catholics with a lot of money. Maybe that's why this is happening. But Marcus Freeman and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish are going to take on a team that is looking to be coronated. And we've seen this before. This game, to me, strikes a lot like the 1987 Fiesta Bowl played out in Arizona between the Miami of Florida Hurricanes and Penn State, where Penn State, I don't think, had 200 yards total offense, but they did have 4 interceptions. They dominated on defense and special teams and found a way to win 14-10. I think that Penn State team under Joe Paterno is very similar to this Notre Dame team under Marcus Freeman. During the playoffs, they dominated a good Indiana team, no matter what anybody says. When you look back at this now, I think it's no doubt Indiana belonged in this 12-team tournament. Maybe they should have been like a 9 seed playing at 8 seed Boise State. I think that would have been more fair. And really, I know Penn State made it to the Big Ten championship game, but Ohio State probably should have been the 3 seed, and Penn State probably should have been the 6 seed. When we look at Ohio State, this is a team that came into the season. They were the most talented team in the country. They've got the best wide receiver core. They've got great offensive and defensive lines. The offensive line's taken some hits early in the season. It seems like they've recovered. The replacements are playing well. Ryan Day and his team, of course, choked when they played Michigan at home in a game that I thought was poorly coached by Ryan Day and that Buckeye staff. I think they played the game not to lose the game. But since then, they dominated Tennessee, just beat the brakes off of Tennessee. And then they beat Texas. And the game was 28-14. I know it was double digits, but I think what people forget here, even though Ohio State's been dominant, that was a 21-14 game with, 4 or 5 minutes left. And Texas had the ball first and goal at the 1. Steve Sarkisian decided not to bring Arch Manning in to just try to get that yard. And on second down, decided to try to pitch the ball wide against a very athletic and fast Ohio State defense. So really, Steve Sarkisian cost his team that game. Ohio State had too many penalties. I think it was 9 or 10 penalties for 75 yards. A couple were drive killers. And that's something you can't do against Notre Dame. You need to stay on track. You need to move the ball because Notre Dame wants to turn this into a rock fight. Now, Notre Dame lost early in the season to Northern Illinois. Everybody wrote them off then, but since then, Marcus Freeman's team has won 13 straight games. So just like Ohio State, you had a bad loss. Now, what I will say there is I don't think Ohio State overlooked Michigan. It's a rivalry game. They just didn't play that well. Notre Dame probably overlooked Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois is not a terrible team, but it was an unacceptable loss for both of these teams. Both of these teams' coaching staffs have done great jobs to get to this point. And like I said, in the college football playoffs, Notre Dame was a little over a touchdown favorite against Indiana. They won that game 27-17. It wasn't as close as the score would indicate. Then they went on to beat Georgia and to beat Penn State in 2 games that were basically dead even matchups when you go by the sports books. So that leads us to this game. There's a lot of questions on this game. And there's a lot of people that are quick to write Notre Dame off. I'm not one of them. I think that what Marcus Freeman's done is an outstanding job. You had Brian Kelly, who had years to pull this off, couldn't do it. I think Brian Kelly said that he was leaving Notre Dame because you just couldn't get the players to compete with the SEC. Well, Marcus Freeman has. Hopefully Marcus Freeman will ignore any college or any NFL job that comes along. Because with Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame is national relevance. There'll be a top 5 program from here on out as long as he's there. You've got Al Golden, a great defensive coordinator, going up against Chip Kelly, an excellent offensive coordinator. That's going to be a chess match. And the thing about that chess match is this, and it causes me some concern when I look at this game. And how much man coverage will Notre Dame play in this game? I mean, Notre Dame's a team that 60 to 70% of the time likes to play man coverage. We watched Texas take away, that great Ohio State passing game. Well, they didn't take it away. Gave up 281 yards. But the way they defended it was not with man coverage. And that's what worries me here, because you've got some great wide receivers at Ohio State. All right, just great. I mean, you probably got all three of them are going to play in the NFL. One of them may be the first player taken in the draft when he comes out. And they are a scary team. And Jeremiah Smith, he was bracketed by Texas. He was held basically to nothing during that game. Can Notre Dame hang with them if they play man coverage? That is a huge concern for me. And I don't know what they're going to do here, because are they willing to change what they normally do to be able to pull this off? Ohio State's run game is also the other concerning thing to me, because how will the Fighting Irish defend the Buckeyes' new gap-heavy scheme? Ohio State ran a very balanced run scheme during the regular season. 44% of its runs were in a gap blocking scheme, with 48% coming in zone scheme. Since the loss to Michigan, though, offensive coordinator Chip Kelly has completely switched it up. During their 3 games in the college football playoffs so far, the Buckeyes have called gap runs 70% of the time, only 25% of the time in zone. A major reason for that is likely that Ohio State is playing with, as I talked about before, a makeshift offensive line with a couple of their stars done for the season, in left tackle Josh Simmons and center Seth McLaughlin. Now, a gap scheme, if you don't know, is a little simpler for both the offensive line and the running back, since it's all about picking a specific hole in a defense and exploiting that hole, which can help a unit that doesn't have a lot of chemistry because they haven't played for the entire season. Now, a zone scheme threatens multiple gaps in a defense. An offensive lineman must be able to know which defenders to pass off and which to attack after the ball is snapped. Now, this often, it's much easier to do it the way Ohio State's doing it now. The 70% gap scheme, I think, is why this team all of a sudden is running the ball much better than what they were. They're just attacking a certain point of the defense. Now, if the Irish can slow down Ohio State's gap-heavy scheme, it could allow Notre Dame to drop defenders back into coverage. If you can drop defenders back into coverage and you don't have to blitz and you can defeat this gap-heavy scheme, Notre Dame is much more likely to be able to safely bracket a Jeremiah Smith or whoever they want on this defense. The only question is, I don't know if Notre Dame's defensive line can hold up against Ohio State's running game. I mean, Ohio State's offensive line has played well. They're not as good as what they were. But when you look at this, Notre Dame struggled to stop the run against Penn State. Penn State's got 2 really good running backs. Now, the thing about Penn State or Notre Dame is up front, the defensive line with the loss of Riley Mills is not as good as what they were. But the linebackers and DBs don't miss tackles. Neither does Ohio State. These are 2 of the best tackling teams in college football. And with that being said, you've got a star you've got stars all over the place in the back sevens of these defenses. All right. And due to the immense amount of talent, the Buckeyes don't see a ton of man coverage, but they perform very well against it. I don't think Notre Dame can afford to play man coverage here. I think Notre Dame has one of the 2 best defensive backfields in the country. I think Texas is the other one. And Texas was smart enough to just bracket him and not try to play him man-on-man. Wide receiver Jeremiah Smith's 89.9 receiver grade against man is the 3rd best in Power 4 conferences. All right? And if they play man, you're going to see a lot more downfield chances in this matchup, which contrasts the style Notre Dame wants to play with compared to Texas. Now, among other threats on offense is Egbuka, whom the Buckeyes do a fantastic job of moving around in formations to create optimal matchups. Almost like, Tyreek Hill was used by Andy Reid in the Chiefs offense 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, Carnell Tate, the team's leading receiver against Texas, has also emerged as a legitimate third threat. And then running back Travion Henderson has also made several big plays in the passing game down the stretch, including that 75-yard touchdown pass against the Texas Longhorns. So when we look at the way Notre Dame matches up against Ohio State's offense, it does give me concern. Now, if I'm Ohio State, the thing I have to stay away from are penalties that throw us off track. I think they'll be able to run the ball for 5 yards a carry against Notre Dame. The key to that is you can't get a false start or a holding because it throws you off script on these plays. Now, I think Notre Dame has a great defensive backfield. I don't think Ohio State's just going to shred them, walk through them, and beat them 40-10. I don't see that happening. I think that this is a game where if you look at the over-under, which is in the low mid-40s, like 44 or so, if this game is played under that 44, Notre Dame wins this game. If the game's played over that, Ohio State probably wins this game. Now, the other concern on offense for Notre Dame is their passing game against Ohio State's pass defense. Can the Fighting Irish offensive line hold up against a normal pass rush without blitzing to allow Riley Leonard to attack the sidelines? Notre Dame's ability to keep Leonard clean when he isn't blitzed will likely determine how much success it finds throwing the football. That's because there's a pretty massive split between Leonard's passing grades when he's kept clean as opposed to when he's under pressure, when he's blitzed and when he's not blitzed. I mean, when kept clean, Riley Leonard passing grade is 86.3, under pressure 36.2. Now, surprisingly, when he's blitzed, it's 81%. Not blitzed, 63.7%. Now, Leonard is forced to be a lot more precise against a standard rush with more defenders in coverage, because he can't really, I don't know, guys. Riley Leonard scares the hell out of me here, and I don't know how to explain this, but Leonard is forced to be far more precise when nobody's blitzing. When there's more defenders in coverage, he has to throw to tighter windows. He's not really as likely to be able to attack one-on-one matchups as he prefers. Now, if Ohio State's blitzing, he could find those one-on-one matchups and get rid of the ball. Now, Ohio State's defense, though, has been pretty contented to sit back with just a four-man rush. They send a blitz at the 86th highest rate in the country. It's 32% of the time. The Buckeyes could do so because their defensive line is dominant. Even with a low blitz rate, Ohio State is third in America with a 40.9 pressure rate. Now, while the Irish offensive line has been terrific in the run game, it has had far more issues in pass protection. Notre Dame is just 82nd in team pass blocking grade at 66.6 and 61st in pass blocking grade when there isn't a blitz. The matchup to watch in particular is Buckeyes edge rushers against the Fighting Irish offensive tackles, especially with no nap there. All right. And Ohio State's combined to have the sixth best pass rushing grade among FBS edge rush pairings. Knapp and Wagner, who were the starting tackles, are just 92nd. And now you've got somebody replacing Knapp. And while protecting Leonard is the number one priority for Notre Dame's aerial attack, the second order of business should be trying to attack the Buckeyes down the sideline. If there's one weakness in Ohio State's defense, it's their cornerbacks, Denzel Burke and Davison Igabusson. The Buckeyes are second in team defensive grade on throws inside the numbers, but just 61st outside the numbers. Of Leonard's 16 big-time throws this season, 11 have come outside the numbers. An emerging star like sophomore wide receiver Jaden Greathouse could be critical in the game for Notre Dame to have a second dimension offensively. Then we look at Notre Dame's run game. And Notre Dame has overcome, several tough run defenses this season, including Texas A&M, Louisville, Indiana, Georgia, and Penn State. The challenge of running the football effectively reaches its apex this week. All right, the Fighting Irish are facing the Buckeyes, who own the nation's highest run defensive grade at 95.1. In fact, that grade is the highest by any FBS team in run defense since Ohio State's 2019 squad featured Chase Young and several other NFL prospects. The Buckeyes defense allows just 3.9 yards per carry. All right, their defense, just 13% of its tackle attempts in run defense are missed. This is kind of similar to that 2019 team defensively. The Buckeyes' success comes from having a plethora of NFL caliber talent. 7 of the Buckeyes' 11 starters own a run defense grade above 82. They are one of just 4 teams, along with Alabama, Oklahoma, and SMU, whose defensive line, linebackers, and secondary all rank inside the top 20 FBS teams in run defense as a unit. Now, changes in their coverage structure have also forced opponents to funnel runs inside to the teeth of the defense. Meanwhile, safety Caleb Downs has excelled as a heavier box roll that allows him to roam between the tackles and stop any play that gets past the first level of defense. Now, normally you would expect Jeremiah Love to be up to the task against such a stout run defense. But aside from Love's 98-yard touchdown run in the first quarter against Indiana, Notre Dame has only averaged 3.3 yards per carry since then. That's going to be an issue. I mean, you can't win this game at 3.3 yards a carry. Now, part of the struggles, I think, have come about due to difficulties blocking up front. You've had injuries. The Fighting Irish have earned just a 55.5 run blocking grade in their last 3 games. They've also created just 0.8 yards after contact per attempt. Riley Leonard has been the most productive runner in the last 2 games, but they need their running backs to create explosive plays. This task will be even more difficult without their starting left tackle. Notre Dame's foundation on offense is its explosive run game. The Fighting Irish face their toughest challenge yet in Ohio State, and they need to overcome those struggles if they want any chance of winning this game. Now, when I look at this game, and when I was writing my game preview, which you just heard most of, but when I was writing it, the thing that stuck to me is this is a mismatch. But then again, a lot of people thought Indiana had a shot against Notre Dame at the start. A lot of people thought Georgia, the big SEC Georgia, would take them down. They didn't. Penn State was a team not quite as good as Ohio State on defense, but they had 2 big stud running backs. They got a couple good wide receivers. Now, Will Howard is nowhere near as bad as Drew Allar, and that's why they lost. And James Franklin is known to lose huge games. Ryan Day has a little bit of that attached to his shoulders. But the thing that comes back to me is 1986 Penn State and Miami. This game in similarities is huge. Only I think Notre Dame might be better than what that Penn State was. And I don't think Miami's near. I think Miami was better than what Ohio State is. So this is a 1-game situation with 10 days to prepare. Coaching matters here. Marcus Freeman versus Ryan Day. If you gave me my choice, I would take Marcus Freeman. Chip Kelly calling the offense against Al Golden calling the defense. I'm taking Al Golden. I think what this game is going to be decided by is this. If there are no turnovers or just 1 turnover for Ohio State, the Buckeyes will win. If you get multiple turnovers, you get 7 or 8 penalties, Notre Dame has a shot. Notre Dame's A game beats Ohio State's B game, I think, by a little bit. Notre Dame's A game against Ohio State's A game is probably a loss for Notre Dame. But the chances of both teams playing an A game are concerning to me. And there is a history with Ryan Day of his team coming up short in situations like this. I think Marcus Freeman is an outstanding coach. This is the best possible championship game I think the television networks, ESPN and Disney, could have gotten. You've got 2 of the highest profile programs in the world outside of Alabama. These are probably the 2 biggest ones. I know the Michigan fans will be upset, but Michigan fans, you always get the fact that even if Ohio State wins it all, you still beat them. So when I break this game down, I expect this to be a rock fight, and that's what Notre Dame wants. I think Notre Dame will play more zone coverage than they normally do. I think they will bracket Jeremiah Smith. If they don't, they will lose. But if they bracket him, Will Howard, I think, will make a mistake or 2. I think when pressure is applied to this team, I think they will make a mistake or 2. We saw pressure applied in Michigan, and they cracked. We saw pressure applied against Oregon, and they cracked. The only close game they won was Texas. And that was basically because Texas cracked, not because Ohio State won it. You got the ball on the 1-yard line. You got a huge quarterback you can put in. And really, I think this, if Arch Manning plays that entire game, we might be watching Notre Dame, Texas. It'd be a repeat of the 1977 Cotton Bowl. So I can tell you this. You can call me crazy, but I would go to BetMGM, which you can click on the link in the description down below to find the top sports book for betting on college football if you're watching on YouTube. And I'm going to bet Notre Dame, and I'm going to bet Notre Dame minus or plus 8.5 to 9 points. I would bet it now. I think you could have some more Irish money come in. I think this point spread is going to fluctuate between 7.5 and 9. So if you jump it at 8.5, take Notre Dame right now. That is what I would do. Now, who wins the game? I think that's a toss-up. But I think Marcus Freeman and his Notre Dame Fighting Irish team have all the feel of a team of destiny. We've seen it before. That 86-87 Penn State team was one of them. We saw it with Ohio State when they beat Miami back in 2002, I think it was. So it's been done before. College basketball, football, World Series. We've all seen it where the better team didn't win. But I can tell you this. The most talent is on the Ohio State sideline. But when I watch Notre Dame, I see a team that gets along well together, that fight for each other, that even when they're down 10-0 and getting the doors beat off of them by Penn State, still found a way to win. I think you'll get an early Ohio State lead, 7-0, 10-3, something like that. I think Marcus Freeman, now Golden, makes some adjustments. I'm not real sure, and I'm not real confident that Ohio State will keep up with those adjustments. And I think if this game's close going to the fourth quarter, history tells me that Ryan Day and Chip Kelly are going to feel that pressure. Notre Dame's going to win the national championship. And I'm going to say the final score will be Notre Dame 20, Ohio State 17. I could be wrong, but what the hell? Everybody else is picking Ohio State. And I really think coaching matters here. I think if Ohio State's going to win this game, they're going to jump up 14-0 in the first 10 minutes and just run away with it. But if they don't, the Fighting Irish are going to win this game. All right, guys, make sure you check out BetMGM. You can click on the link in the description down below in this video to bet on this game right now, minus 8.5 in favor of Ohio State. You can get like almost 3-1 odds right now with Notre Dame winning the game straight up. Go hit that. You can follow me on X at Grueling Truth. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell notification on YouTube, like and follow us on Facebook. Go check out thegruelingtruth.com. But for now, guys, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been watching and listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.